This year was the first time that I sat down and watched all 10 Best Picture nominees. It will also be the first time that I watched the entire Oscars ceremony. I'm hoping to do this every year if things go well this time around. I am recording this the week leading up to the Oscars, but I don't know when the video is going to come out, so there's a good chance that it comes out after the Oscars, which would explain why I'm talking as if I don't know what the Academy winner is, because I don't yet. I have been pleased with the 10 movies selected this year as they have all been good or better, and I have had fun watching every single one of them in all of their different styles. This is a really strong group of movies, so I want to preface this video by saying I don't dislike any of these movies. If the one that's your favorite is lower on my list, don't worry, I'm not saying it's bad. I am not doing that to diss that movie. Also, everything in this video is going to be in spoiler territory just to cover my own ass, so if you haven't seen certain movies yet and you don't want to be spoiled, skip around them or just come back to this video at a different time. That being said, why don't you sit down, relax, and join me, the Cinemarax, as I cinema rank these 10 Best Picture nominees. There is no better place to start than number 10. And number 10 is F1. F1 is a beautifully shot movie. You absolutely feel that Top Gun Maverick blood flowing through its veins, but it's not groundbreaking. There is much fun to be had watching these races and seeing how the rules are bent or broken. Brad Pitt is of course also charismatic, and that adds to the enjoyment of this movie. Of course though, this movie doesn't actually do that much that's different from any other movie. You have a pretty normal classic dynamic of the old grizzled veteran and the new egotistical up-and-comer, and they clash and they butt heads until eventually they realize the other guy is actually not as bad as they thought. The reason I have this one at number 10 is because while it is a fun movie, it really feels the least like a Best Picture type nominee out of all 10 of these movies. It's a great time in a cinema, but I don't really see myself coming back to it much in the future. My number 9 spot is Sentimental Value. Much like F1 actually, the main plot of Sentimental Value doesn't do that much that's extraordinary. It is tight and it moves along quickly, which I appreciate, but it wasn't groundbreaking. Again, is that same word. It felt like the kind of movie that could end up meandering way longer than it should have, but they did not do that and they kept it moving. So I appreciate the pacing of this movie for sure. The father-daughter dynamic is of course the center stage main driving conflict of the movie, but it really wasn't the most interesting thing to me. The part of the movie that was the most interesting for me was the part about Elle Fanning's character. That is a normal character archetype where they're going to push ahead and get through it and make this role work no matter what. I expected that that was where this was going to go, but I was pleased to see that they went a different route with it and had her actually come to the smart realization that she couldn't do the justice for this role that she wanted to do, and made the mature and correct decision to give it up and move on and basically force Stellan Skarsgård's character to do the right thing. Ultimately, it was Elle Fanning's character's decision, along with the persistence of a sister, to finally break through to Nora and get her to take on this role for her father. It was nice to see that a family can keep trying, even if it's the father who isn't that good at being a father, or it's the sister who is really good at being a sister finally being the one to break through and kind of get the message through that the father himself couldn't send. He was having issues because he didn't know how to communicate. So I think of it as a kind movie. Maybe not the best word to fit that, but for me, it works. Number 8 is The Secret Agent. Cool story about me is that I have never actually sat through an entire movie that is in a foreign language. This movie absolutely encouraged me to branch out and spend more time in other movies and TV shows that I've heard are really good, but are in foreign languages. I now know, which I already knew before, but I was reassured, I guess, that I could sit through a movie just off of subtitles and still get fully satisfied from it. I do have a bit of a hard time describing why I enjoyed this movie. I just know that I did at the end of it. Following Marcelo as he ventures into a twisted world is fascinating to watch. It is a rich businessman who targets Marcelo because Marcelo dared to stand against this rich businessman and his ideas to privatize the company he worked for. It was the same rich businessman that added to the fuel of his hatred of Marcelo by disrespecting Marcelo over dinner and having the audacity to get upset when Marcelo stood up for himself and his wife. These two things, which in our world would really just result in tension, maybe at work, or a loss of a job at worse, in that world resulted in him being a target of an assassination plot. Seeing corruption and failures of justice so prevalent within the world that Marcelo inhabits, it makes the tension so much higher because you know that no one's there to help him. All he's got is that little group of people that he finds himself in. I enjoyed the opening of the movie, which felt out of place for quite a long time until later in the movie you started to see more of the failures of justice and the corruption, and you remember it was established right at the start of the movie that that was a part of this world. I have to say that in many movies, I don't care for the clearly defined chapters and title cards that come with them, and that's also the case here. It just doesn't work for me, it doesn't do anything for me. The pacing of The Secret Agent is also quite slow, and it definitely could have used a little bit of trimming. But regardless, at the end of the movie, I was curious the entire time and I was invested in what was happening right up until the credits rolled. That is a mark of a good movie. Okay, it's about to get a little bit more spicy. My number 7 is Sinners. Let's take a moment and breathe. Again, I like all these movies. I'm just putting Sinners here, which I think is probably a bit lower than other people have it. Don't go sprinting to the comments to say I'm terrible for putting it there. I still like this movie a lot, so don't go worrying about that. It's not a hate thing, all right? Sinners was a movie I knew very little about going into, which I am very happy about. I knew there'd be vampires, and that was about it. That's all I knew. I was then, of course, faced with vampires, but that was being used as a method to tell a story about assimilation and losing one's culture. It was a surprising turn of events, even more surprising that they were able to keep many of the traditional vampire tropes, but also make it blend perfectly with that assimilation and losing culture story. It worked way better than I ever could have imagined. Also, having those common vampire tropes added to a lot of the tension and sometimes the fun of the movie, so that was a good thing in my eyes. This movie does spend a very long time getting to the point where we have the juke joint and all of the tension and chaos that happens in that building. I found that Michael B. Jordan did a great job playing both sides of the same coin as Smoke and Stack. I have to also point out that the crew did an incredible job making this very difficult task come to life in such a clean and seamless way. The rest of the cast is also working their butts off to deliver great performances. Everyone has of course talked about the juke joint's music scene, and I can't really add anything to that conversation at this point. It was amazing and it was a captivating experience when I saw it in theaters. I'm very glad that I got to experience that in theaters when it came out. No spoilers on the fact that that even existed. I am happy that a movie that pushed more into the horror side of things was nominated. It seems to be a little more common for that to happen now, and I am very thankful for that, and I'm also thankful for Sinners for delivering a movie that is nominee worthy. My number 6 is Train Dreams. Like many of these movies, I was surprised by Train Dreams. I really didn't expect much. It's a Netflix movie and the premise didn't stand out to me in any sort of way. Then I watched it and I wasn't blown away or anything by a spectacle or anything like that. But in a word, this movie is quaint. The scenes and the shots, they're beautiful. It is a quiet, somber, and reflective movie. It talks about not doing enough and believing that you are a bad person because of that, even if you shouldn't believe it. That worry is a natural one that I think many of us feel day to day. We need to do more, we need to be more, or karma is going to come for us. Joel Edgerton does a wonderful job exploring the hardworking family man that loses everything. The hope that you see him hold out that his family is going to magically return one day, and seeing that slowly fade away from him over the years is sad, and that is hard to watch, but it is really well done. Getting to see him have a happy moment flying in a plane was a great way to bring this movie to a close. My number 5 is Hamnet. This movie has bounced around my 1 to 5 area the entire time since I first watched it, and I think settling at 5 is a good place for it. This movie is hard carried by 2 of its actors, Jesse Buckley and Jacoby Joop. These 2 were fantastic, especially the child actor. He did amazing work. Jesse Buckley is tearing it up in nearly every scene she's in. I think it was a good choice to do the story the way they did. I don't think we needed an actual remake of Hamlet. I think it is much more interesting to see the story about why Hamlet came to be through Hamnet. It works for me. I do find it a little odd how hard they seem to be hiding the fact that it was William Shakespeare in the entire movie. I mean, even the subtitles, which I use all the time, were changing his name, but never actually giving him the name William, Shakespeare, anything. They just avoided that at all costs until the big reveal later on. Did they really think people didn't expect that? Regardless, this was a great story of love, loss, and grief all told through stellar performances. My girlfriend cried when the bird died. She also cried when Hamnet went into the cold night. The play scene at the end is a little drawn out if you ask me, but I still enjoyed the movie overall and had a good time with it even though it's a sad experience. My number 4 is another little bit of a controversial one potentially, and that's One Battle After Another. Again, remember, not a big deal that it's not my number 1. I know a lot of people have it at number 1. It's 4. It's still quite high, just not my favorite movie that I saw out of these 10. I do understand why this is a number 1 for a lot of people. For me, my only issue with it is the introductory, roughly first third of the movie. The information we got out of that first third or so was vital. We needed that to understand the story, the world, and the dynamics between certain characters, as well as how we were going to go from that to the current day conflict that is the main plot of the movie. I just think that this could have been done in a bit shorter of a time period and done in a more interesting manner, perhaps, because I was having a very hard time getting invested early on in this movie. That's disappointing to me because the entire rest of the movie is absolutely amazing. I love it. This cast is excellent and the script is fascinating. The Christmas Adventurers Club is ridiculous, but it adds to the layers of the humor. It, of course, more importantly, adds to the layers of the societal discussions that this movie is having. That club is also the driving force for Sean Penn's Lockjaw. His drive to be a part of that club is what forces him to go after Willa. It is what forces Bob to get back into a world he long left behind and be like a fish out of water. It is also what leads to, in my opinion, the hilarious demise of Mr. Lockjaw. I think that having Willa be the one to grab onto that fire inside of her given by her mother is a great way to have her take over and do the job for herself, all the while Bob is chasing and he's close, but she was able to help herself, and he was then able to come in and basically be the support for her after it was done. Seriously, the back 2/3 of this movie are fantastic. I love it. I just wish that first third was a little bit quicker or cleaner with how it did its work. I'm not exactly sure what I'd be looking for there other than maybe trimming some of the fat out to just get to the point quicker, but either way, it's still a fantastic movie, and it's my number 4. Let's move on. Number 3 is Begonia. I wish I had made it to the theaters to see this thing. I did not, unfortunately. It was an interesting trailer that left me with many questions, which a trailer should do. Take notes, people who spoil their own movies through the trailers. Now that I did get around to watch it, I can say it was absolutely worth it. Begonia keeps you guessing until the very last moment about if she is or is not an alien. During the runtime of the movie, I was constantly flipping back and forth on she's an alien, no she's not, yes she is, no she's not. And that was all through misdirects and different things they were saying and just where they kind of let you feel like things were going. But it always kept you on your toes. I don't think this kind of thing would have worked if Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons were not at their A game for this entire movie. Both sides are fully invested in the truth that they are telling. It leads to an amazing payoff where you find out that the conspiracy guy, the crazy nuthead, was actually right all along, but he was a little bit too eager and got himself snap, crackle, popped out of this world before he could be proven correct. The way these two butt heads the entire movie is what sold me on the premise and kept me invested from start to finish. It takes the very simple concept that character conflict is interesting and it builds an entire movie off of it. I also have to give a shout out to Aidan Delbus, I hope I said that right, as Don. The way he struggles to please Teddy all while still trying to do the right thing for himself adds another element to this movie that is enjoyable. And his fateful demise when he was ready to go was mind-blowing. Was that in bad taste? If I could complain about one thing in this movie, and clearly it's not a huge deal because it is my number 3 still, it's what in the world were those alien designs at the end? I mean, they took a movie that was taking itself very seriously the entire runtime, and in those last few moments, it kind of just felt like a joke. I was not a fan of those designs at all, and thankfully they didn't affect the plot, they weren't around long, and they didn't make the movie really any worse. It's just something that stuck in my mind that I thought they were pretty dumb. Either way, it's a great movie and it's the start of my top 3. My number 2 is Frankenstein. Okay, Frankie Stein, I was not expecting to like this movie so much when I started watching it, and yet here it is at my number 2 spot. It is an interesting variation of a familiar story that blends the nature versus nurture of evil and the more grounded ways in which parenting can affect us as we grow up. Jacob Elordi is well known as the surprise standout here, and I have to agree. I don't know who was going to be the original creature, but I am thankful that it ended up being a Lordy at the end of the day. Maybe I just saw loose strays coming at him, but I don't really understand why people didn't like Oscar Isaac's Frankenstein. I thought he did an excellent job in that role. The movie had great effects, costumes, and makeup. There were some shots as well that were just breathtaking. While I did like the ending, I think it was a little sudden how the creature turned and forgave Victor after everything he did and the major beatdown he was given in life at the hands of Victor. Frankenstein was the biggest surprise for me out of these 10 movies, and it was my number one for a very long time until I watched the last of the 10 movies that I got to. And number one is, of course, then Marty Supreme. And this was in fact the last movie out of these 10 that I got to, and it ended up being my number one as well. So I guess I saved the best for last, at least in my world. What I signed up for was a movie about ping pong. That's all I knew going into it, and I am glad that's all I knew, because what I ended up getting was one of the most insane stories I've ever seen. It ends up going all over the place down a ton of rabbit holes, but at the end of the day, it worked. I don't know how they made it work, but it worked for me. I thought it was really well done. It was really captivating, and I was locked in for it. Ping pong is like the puppet master up above, pulling the strings and driving the story forward, even though most of the time the story isn't even directly going deep into ping pong stuff at all. A large portion of the movie is basically a side quest to get money, but that's in service of ping pong. At the end of the day, everything comes back to ping pong. Even if the actions themselves are not swinging a paddle and hitting balls, you're still getting ping pong driving the movie ahead. The lengths that Marty will go to get the money that he so desperately wants is what makes this movie crazy. He takes the dog's man to the vet for him. On the way, he gets sidetracked by more ping pong money, and through that, they lose the dog. He then tries to go get the dog and meets a crazed guy with a shotgun who makes him run away for the hills. Because of that, they try to trick the original dog's owner into thinking that they were handing over his dog, but they were going to just take his money and run. Instead, this guy that they crossed was apparently just a crazy psychopath that also then caused issues for them. Every step of the way, things go wrong, and it adds to the tension and the entertainment that this movie provides. I never thought that a movie about ping pong would spend so much and so little time on ping pong and still be a crazy, interesting story. I haven't even mentioned Timothée Chalamet putting on his favorite performance of mine. I'd never really connected with the Dune movies or his part in them, but for Marty Supreme, I was all in. He is rude, he is arrogant, and he is egotistical. At the end of the movie, he manages to get a partial redemption, which is probably more than he deserves. He is toxic, the people around him are toxic, everybody is toxic, and it feels surreal because of it, but at the same time, it also does feel real and absolutely plausible because this is the kind of stuff that happens in life. Marty was able to get the match he wanted against Endo. It wasn't on the grand stage he wanted, but after he did all that work to get to just the point he was at then, he was not letting that moment pass him by. After his success, he aims to live life and be a father. Of course, this part is now pure speculation on my part, but I struggle to believe that he's actually going to turn around and be a good father to this kid, and maybe we're going to get a Marty Supreme 2 where his kid goes insane hunting for some money to play tennis or something. I don't know, but that's where I'm at. I don't think it's going to go that well for him. That's not part of the movie, though. Let's just finish that off. I mean, I went through all of that about the movie, and I still didn't even talk about Gwyneth Paltrow, who did a great job, or all of the other side plots and rabbit holes we went down throughout the movie. There is so much here, but I think we covered enough, and we're going to put this ranking to bed. I had a blast watching these movies and writing about it and now making this video. I have been debating for a long time making a channel just about movies, TV, and books, and I finally just said, screw it, we're gonna do it. This will be our first video, and we're going for it. I figured this was a good place to start, and I'm hoping to follow it up next week when Project Hail Mary comes out. I'm going to get a slightly early screening to that, so I will watch it, and hopefully it's really good because my hopes are through the roof. These 10 movies were great. I had a great time doing this and watching these movies, and I am so glad that I picked this year of all years to finally fully submerge myself in the Oscars world. I've dipped my toes in every year, but I wanted more, and so now we're here and we're going for it all. We're going for broke. What did you think of the Best Picture nominee movies? Did you enjoy them? Which one was your favorite? Which one was your least favorite? Which one do you think is actually going to win the Best Picture award at the Oscars this weekend? For my money, I do think that one battle after another is going to ultimately win it, but we'll see what happens. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.